9:35. And now to Eddie ARRUZA with some surprising findings about young adults and the Internet. Eddie.
Phil, as most anyone with a computer knows, the Internet has become a major place to meet and interact with people all over the world. But a new study has found that cyberspace is segregated, at least among college students. A Northwestern University researcher has discovered that students of different backgrounds socialize on different online sites. The findings seem to indicate that the Internet isn't the great cyber melting pot that many believe it is. Well, here to tell us why these findings are significant is Eszter Hargittai, an assistant professor of communication studies and sociology at Northwestern University. She is also the author of the study Social Networking Sites. Welcome to Chicago Tonight.
Thank you.
Tell us, first of all, why you did this study.
Yes, well, there are a lot of questions about the Internet social implications. There's a lot of fear as to what it might lead to. There's also a lot of enthusiasm about how it might level the playing field. But other than anecdotal evidence, there's very little rigorous empirical study that's done on how people actually use the Internet and what its social implications might be. So thanks to a grant from the MacArthur Foundation under its Digital Media and Learning Initiative, I've been able to do a detailed study on first-year college students' uses of the Internet.
Well, before we get into the study and its findings and its implications, tell folks out there who are not on social networking sites or know nothing about them what they are, what happens on them, what they're used for.
Sure. Social networking sites have started getting more and more popular in the last few years. People might have heard about sites like Facebook, MySpace, initially Friendster. The idea is that users can post information about themselves, but what makes them truly special compared to just a homepage that someone might put up about themselves is that they allow people to connect to other users on these networks. And the sites actually let other users see people in these users' networks. And so your networks actually become visible.
And so what you have found is that certain sites attract certain people. Now, we just saw a little bit of the Facebook site. Tell us about Facebook, which now is the most popular and most used of those social networking sites. Who's going to it and why?
Yes, so in my study, which was done on first-year college students at the University of Illinois, Chicago, I found that certain types of students were more likely to use Facebook over MySpace, for example, which is another one of these sites. So one thing I found was that Hispanic students were considerably less likely to use Facebook, and they were considerably more likely to use MySpace. I also found that students whose parents have higher levels of education are more likely to use Facebook. And also, students who live at home with their parents are less likely to use Facebook.
Well, why, especially Facebook, are whites most likely to go there rather than minorities?
These are very interesting questions. These are new findings. Part of what's going on here, I think, is structural. Facebook started out as a site that was only open to college students initially. Now, today it's open to anybody. So today, anybody could sign up. However, research has shown that people tend to use these sites to keep in touch with people they already know from their offline lives. So they will likely join networks where their friends are already present. So given that Facebook initially was restricted to certain users, college students only, it's possible that, say, if there are Hispanic students who have friends from high school who never went to college and so never were able to join Facebook, then these students won't join Facebook because that's not where their offline friends are hanging out. So it's not a good system on which they can follow their friendship networks.
So when I speak about segregation online, especially in these sites, there's nothing that you have found, or is there, that attracts a certain ethnicity or race or socioeconomic group, and when you're talking about college students here, that's inherent in these sites?
I don't think there's anything about the sites, for example, aesthetically speaking, which is one issue that some people bring up. I think it's structurally the way these sites were initially started that makes them somewhat different. So the fact that Facebook was so close to certain populations that made it more restricted initially to certain networks. The fact that they've opened up since means that over time they might attract more diverse groups, but initially they were limited to a certain type.
And as you just mentioned, the college users, the education of their parents also factors into it. If their parents have a college degree, they're more likely to go to Facebook. If they have only a high school degree or some limited college, they're more likely to go to MySpace. Again, is there a rationale for that?
I think, again, it's mostly about the types of networks and friendship networks that people have. So here with the college students, we're controlling for education at that level because they're all in their first year of college. However, parental education stands in as a proxy for socioeconomic status. And what we have is students whose parents have graduate degrees, for example, likely have friends whose parents also have graduate degrees who then likely went on to college a few years ago and thus went on to Facebook.
So you said that you did this study at UIC. You're a professor at Northwestern. Why did you choose UIC?
Yes, well, it certainly wasn't because it was the most convenient. It was for research and scientific reasons. The University of Illinois Chicago is an extremely diverse campus, and given that my research interests are mainly in questions of social inequality as related to digital media use, UIC offers a really great place to do the study. It has a very diverse student population. U.S. News and World Report ranked it as top 10 in ethnic diversity. We also have a lot of students who are first-generation college students, while also others whose parents have graduate degrees. So we have a really big range, which really helps when we want to look at what predicts different types of uses.
Which might say something about the diversity on your campus. Was that an issue that was brought up?
Well, it is. It's an issue that I'm aware of, that diversity at Northwestern is not quite as large as it is at UIC, so I didn't think for these questions it was necessarily the best place for this study.
Okay, so you've done this study and you've seen the results. What is the significance to society at large?
Right, it's a very good question. Why should we care about this?
That's why I saved it for last.
I think we should care about this because there's a lot of either fear or enthusiasm about what the internet might do for society. One of the ideas is that it might help people leapfrog ahead and change their positions. And but it has to make us pause that people's offline lives are actually very much reflected in their online lives. So it's not a clean starting point where you completely leave behind constraints of your offline life when you go online. What you do online actually very much mirrors what you do offline.
So the internet, after all, isn't making the world a more democratic and homogeneous place?
Not necessarily a more democratic place. It has the potential, but it depends on how we use it.
But at this time, it's not. My thanks to you, Eszter Hargittai.
Thanks
for
very much.
being here. And now, Phil, back to you.
Thanks, Eddie.